everything. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again. And I'm so happy to have you all and to see you all. Tonight, our focus is on unboxing unhealed emotional wounds. Yes, very interesting. And we are getting ourselves ready and in that frame of mind to unbox. We want to focus on why is it important for us to heal. We want to look at the signs, some signs of emotional wounds, and also we want to look at how it affects, or emotional wounds affects our life and even our relationship, our daily life, our relationship, where we interact, and all of those wonderful things. When we look at healing and unboxing or unhealed emotional wounds, it is said that healing begins when we change the way we tell our story. And then we attract what we are and not what we want. Mm-hmm. We change the trajectory of our mindset of entitlement, of being a victim, of our ego ruling us, controlling, and also the need for validation, or defense mode or defense mechanism that we sometimes find ourselves in. And even sometimes these defense mode can become manipulation. Our aim is to change our mindset to, I am responsible for my own healing. I'm destined for greatness. Purpose is on my life. I'm healed. And if it is that I was hurt and was broken, I'm now owning that I was broken to be blessed. I have found out from experience, from my personal experience, that if we practice the habit of pushing our emotions in a closet or in the closet or under the rug, that very soon they start coming out when we least expect it. When we don't want them, when we're not calling them because we're always pushing them away. One day they start coming out. And when they're coming out, they come out at a time when we don't want it to. And we're trying to put them back in that closet, go back under there, go back under the rug. I don't want it. I can't deal with this now. And it's still coming out. But we want to get to a place where we become honest with our feelings of hurt, disappointment, grief, loss, unforgiveness, and even pain, as we strive and thrive to be and to become the best version of ourselves. Good evening again. This evening, I have with me three wonderful ladies. And as we embark on this wonderful journey, I just want us to understand that these persons are professionals. They are costly professionals. And they have taken the time out of their busy schedule to offer their services with favor. And I want to implore us today that let us take everything that is given to us as a priceless gift. And not that when we leave here this evening, we shelf what we were taught or what was given to us, but that we will leave here this evening holding on to this valuable experience, this valuable impartation from persons who are very expensive. But yet again, we decide that we want to give of ourselves so that we can help other persons to heal and that we can become the best version of ourselves. And as I look at it, can you imagine a world with healed people? How beautiful it can be, how beautiful it will be. It will spill off, hurt will spill off in our jobs, in our homes, in our family, wherever we go. So I implore you today, this evening, once more, I want to hold on to the valuable information. I have with me 3 wonderful ladies. I have Michelle Cumberbatch, and she's a relationship coach, and she is in Texas, USA. I have Davene Harris, and she's a father wound expert and a therapeutic coach, and she's in Canada. I have with me Joette Warren. She's a mental health therapist, and she is in New Jersey. I'm your host, Samantha McNeil, mindset and life coach, and I'm in North Carolina. And we are happy to be with you this evening. And as I said, we want to take all that we can as we unbox, unheal emotional wounds so that we can be well in every era of our life. Hello, ladies. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Warren. Hello, Davene. How are you doing?
We're well.
Awesome.
Hello. Doing well.
Hello, everybody, audience. Hello. Happy to see you. Happy to have you. And we are ready. As we mentioned earlier, we want to look at how do we identify, and this evening we'll have each person sharing their views, and we want to leave some time so that persons can ask their question. You can share your journey, anything that you want to share. It's a safe environment, and we want to let you know that. So today we want to know, why is it important? Because I realize that there are times when you mention becoming the best version of yourself, healing, persons will say, it's not all that. Why go interfere with what is not needed or what is not bothering me? I put it under the rug, and for all I know, I'm fine. I'm doing my life. I'm being a mom. I'm being a husband. I'm being a businessman, a businesswoman, and it's just working. So what is the big thing? Why do I need to go unbox and unheal wound? And yeah, it's unhealed, so it's there, and I put it away. And why go for it? So, mental health therapist Joette, why is it important for us to go unbox these unhealed wounds?
Okay, so when I meet my clients, if it's a situation like this where it's unhealed wounds, I always ask them this simple question to get them to think about the emotions and what they are feeling. And it basically is it really bothering you? Is it really not bothering you? What has happened to you? If it's something that, if it's something, for example, that happened to you when you were 6, or something that happened to you when you're 15 or 24, and now it's 10, 15, 20 years later, and it's still playing back in your mind, is it really not bothering you? And if it's not really bothering you, then why is it still coming up? And when it comes up in your mind, why is it causing negative feelings for your body?
Wow. Father wound expert Davene and therapeutic coach, what's your take?
All right, so basically to piggyback off what Joette said, it's a case of if you don't deal with it, if you don't unbox it, it's going to stay there, and it's going to find itself to the surface, as you mentioned, even Samantha, in your introduction, that it's going to come up some way, somehow. Because here's the thing, this is the title of a book, but it's the truth that the body keeps the score. Once you don't deal with those emotional wounds, they are lodged in your body, and they are going to resurface. And what is going to happen is that you're going to bleed on people who didn't hurt you. So the best thing to do is to unbox them, to heal them, so that you can truly be the best version of yourself, for yourself, and for the people around you.
Awesome. Michelle, relationship coach, what's your take on why should we?
Well, I think both the ladies are on point with what they said. The difference with what I see, it's that it's coming out in the choices they're making on a daily basis in their relationship, and they're creating more and more trauma because they have never actually unpacked the trauma that they had previously. So you find women actually going into a relationship with unhealed wounds and holding the person who they're presently in a relationship with accountable for the past wounds that they've actually was inflicted on them. So if it's affecting your daily life, it's something that you definitely need to give attention to. And something you can't escape. Suppressing it would not work. It will come out in some form, as the lady said, in your body, in the simple things of being irritable so quickly, not patient, just even in your dreams, you suppress it, it's going to show up. You cannot hide it. So it's definitely something you need to give attention to.
Thank you for that. And I guess I'm going to start right back at you, Michelle. As you mentioned, you started looking at some of the ways it will manifest. So can you share with us the unhealed wounds will manifest in our daily life and even in our relationship?
So I deal with women from all ages, and people typically have a sense of once you're older, you're smarter or wiser to your issues, and that's so far from the issue, from the problem, right? I think my average age of women that's in my office is between the ages of probably 28 to 45, and these are wounds that sometimes childhood, and they have never healed from that. So then they are going into relationship with those childhood wounds and holding people, as I said before, accountable, and that would be depending on what that wound was. It could be something that was a trauma, like even child abuse, and therefore they can't really have and show up in a relationship in a way that is going to be conducive to really creating a healthy relationship because they're stuck. And so, but the very thing that comes up every time for women is that they can't get over, if I didn't, if I would, if I should have. And that keeps you so stuck because you haven't forgiven yourself, you haven't healed. And so because you can't address and get an answer from the past, you are repeating it daily in your choices.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. What if it is that it is a disappointment in maybe growing up, and it was something that maybe as a child you were disappointed, and it's not more so of an abuse, but it's more of a environment that was toxic or somewhat disappointing? Will that affect persons, or can that affect persons emotionally and even how they operate as adults in their relationship?
So I am a big believer of culture being very impactful.
Not you. Go ahead.
I'm very, very big of recognizing culture as something that's impactful to your relationship. And often when people talk about culture, they think of things outside, like community, even a country. And for me, the biggest culture that affect community, affect the country, affect the world is the home culture, right? And so we grew up in a home culture that actually displays what love relationship looks like. And until there's something that is really impactful that comes into our life and say this could be different, we actually perpetuate that into our relationship in some way, shape, or form. Some people might say, no, I don't repeat that. I don't do what my mom did, but it might drive you to go to extreme left. So you can't avoid it, but giving attention to it actually gives you more understanding of it. Therefore, you can actually navigate how you move forward in that. So yeah, big time. I'm a big culture buff when it comes to how I hold parents so accountable. And that starts with me. I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now as a young mom. And the simplest things we do, we actually think of it as it's me and I cater to me and it's me, it's about me. And then you find yourself seeing a child just being impacted by this years later. And you're like, why is she doing that? Well, geez, that's what she grew up seeing. That's what her life was. She's just kind of representing what you presented. And so I tell people you're actually the foundation, and your branches are your kids, your grandkids. And so I ask you, like, what is it that you really want to leave as a legacy? Because you are leaving a legacy, guys, if you're conscious or unconscious of it, you are. Can't escape it.
Thank you so much. Joette, we're gonna have you talk on the same issue and as it relates to your mental state, because I would perceive that if it is that you are emotionally you're wounded, then you will have some distortion in your mental state and how you would be able to maybe to cope. And what say, as the same question I asked Michelle, if it is that you were in an environment, because you would have been exposed to something that would have caused you to feel hurt or disappointed or all of that. How is it that it would manifest, and how it affects persons?
All right. Okay, got it. So I'll do the second question first. So how can it manifest into adulthood, and how can it affect individuals into when they're adults? So for example, let's say as a young child, your mother worked, or your parents worked a lot, or your mother had to migrate, or something happened in the family home that causes some type of dysfunction of what is displayed as a nuclear family, right? So you grow up now with this wound, and it's something that you always held onto, which can develop into resentment. So that resentment now can manifest into emotional stress. And emotional stress now can lead to the regular side effects of stress, such as feeling pressured all the time, angry, unexplained sadness, easily frustrated. And some individuals that have a difficulty managing stress, it can also lead to something more maladaptive, such as drug and alcohol use. It can lead to being very promiscuous, both male and female. So it can lead to a lot of things when it is not dealt with or addressed. Okay, so those are just some of the ways that it can manifest into your adult life. And it can also manifest in ways that can be seen good. You can become a perfectionist, but as we know that being perfectionist is good, but it also has its flaws, because if you're a perfectionist to a certain level, it can become where it's almost as if you have like a mental health issue, such as like OCD, right? How to cope with it? Of course, I'm going to say the number one way to cope with it is to get therapy, seek therapy. I personally believe, and I stand by this, that everyone should have a therapist. You may not need your therapist all the time, but we should all have a therapist that we can reach out to in our time of need. If you are a spiritual person, you can reach out to your spiritual leader. You can also work on being present, being mindful, practicing grounding techniques, mindfulness, exercising, going for walks, being with nature, and finding balance in your life.
Wow, thank you so much. And when you there's a point that you made, Joette, that when you said that, how it can affect, and there are times when it drives, when she mentioned it can affect you that way, or it can affect you in a sense that you become a perfectionist. And I guess we want to highlight that, because most of the times when we talk about emotional wounds and unboxing, persons will say, oh, I'm fine, I got it all together, I don't do anything, I'm just, I know my stuff, and it's all good. So how do you say that I'm troubled or I'm not troubled? But the therapist just mentioned something that is so true. We are sometimes we find it functioning, and I find it, and I can say for myself, there are things that I hold in my mind that, hey, you see this? Never gonna happen, will not happen. And I'm big on it. And when I see it coming up, I'm like, And then I'm like, wow, where did that come from? It means that, oh my God, if I go back, I realize exactly so. Looking at it, we want to, wow, that's just profound. And Davene, I'm going to turn over to you. I hope you remember all the stuff I asked the other ladies. So
I always do this when I try to remember stuff. I have to. It's my way of coping. So I think the first thing you had asked was really as it relates to how it manifests. But before I even answer that, I wanted to give some language to the word trauma, because I know that for a lot of us, we're thinking that trauma is a big thing. And it's, it's that thing that you're able to easily see and identify. And once it's that visible thing, then we call it trauma. And you had mentioned the whole idea of disappointment. Disappointment is trauma, because a child grows up with needs. And if those needs are not met, that means that trauma comes into place right there. So the language for trauma that I wanted to share with us tonight is any disruption of normalcy that happens in an individual's life. If something was supposed to be going along a particular course and it was disrupted, then we can basically say that trauma entered the room right there. So that disappointment piece of the needs not being met certainly can cause a child, an individual, to be wounded emotionally. And then we talk about the manifestation. I think Michelle was the one who mentioned, in terms of your emotions, how that comes into play. So you're thinking that you are okay, you're thinking that you're normal, but then you get anchored so easily, you get so irritated, and you're trying to figure out why. Joette mentioned the whole idea of perfectionism. Oh, who would have thought that was actually a trauma response? So when I speak to my clients along the lines of father wounds, I normally take them on what I call a spectrum of the low and the high. So let's talk about some of the things that we would have mentioned for individuals who would have gone through some of those emotional wounds as it relates to their self-esteem. They either have a very low self-esteem, they don't think anything of themselves, or they have very high self-esteem where they think they are better than everybody else and they have to, walk on people and all that kind of stuff. Then we talk about your body image. Do you have a poor image of yourself? Do you put any effort into looking yourself in the mirror and, paying yourself compliments, stuff like that? Or do you actually do so much of it that, you think that you are, as I said, better than everybody else, like the extremes that happen. So when we see the manifestation, it's either something happening to a lesser degree or something happening so high that there is no stability, there's no sense of order or balance in the individual, where duality is what the person leads their life by. So you can be a person who is angered about something, but how you express that anger is so that you are not making a mess of the situation and not, being disrespectful or, doing anything that you're going to be ashamed of in the end. It's just creating that balance and that order to yourself to know that you can feel your emotions and you can also deal with what you're going through. So I hope I answered your questions, because I had
blowed us away. That was just so profound, because as somebody mentioned in the chat that you thought that being a perfectionist was normal. And then you realize that you've been killing yourself your entire life because you're just so no nonsense. You're just so you're not into, you just don't want. And I tell you, it's just so profound. And while we are on unboxing, we want to explore, how do we unbox? Because after we leave here tonight, we want to understand, we want to take away, how do I start? How do I unbox? How do I do this? Yes, it's been bothering me. Yes, it's nudging me. Yes, at times I have anxiety, but I managed to drink a glass of wine or I go with some friends and the feeling go away, or I take some sleeping pill and I go to my bed and tomorrow morning I function in my job and I be perfect and I come out and I'm just good. So we already look at why we need to unbox it, but how? Because it's been shelved so long. It's been okay, I've been functioning. How do I? What do you mean? How do I do it? Joette, how do I do it?
All right. So the first step is realizing. So once you come to that realization, you have to do it. So like you have to be ready to unbox. Nobody can't force you into unboxing. No one can nudge you or push you into unboxing. You have to make that step, that first step yourself. A simple question you can ask yourself is, who will I always live with? And you will always live with yourself. So once you realize that, okay, I will always live with myself. I can never not live with myself. So you have to think, is this the kind of person that I want to live with for the rest of my life? Is this how I want to be for the rest of my life, holding on to something and not being able to let go? And why is it that I am not able to let go? And start to do these self-assessments and start to ask yourself questions, the difficult questions, and be able to hear the answers that you may not want to hear, that you may not like, but understand that this is your journey towards unboxing, right? So that is one of the ways I feel like you can unbox. Also being mindful, as I said earlier, being mindful. Are you someone that's very black and white? Very yes and no? Are you able to have a middle ground, able to compromise, and able to also maybe look into yourself and see, did you, in any way, were you able to contribute to what is causing the wound? And also, are you now yourself continuing the wounds with someone else? So the wounds that happen to you, are you also displaying those wounds, or are causing others to have those wounds that you experienced in the past?
Okay, you mentioned the black and white. What does that mean? If it is that someone is not able to see love or life with no middle ground, it's either you, it's either you are for me or you're against me, or it's either if you do this, then you love me, and if you don't, then you don't love me. What does that say? Does that mean that something emotionally went wrong or something is happening?
So everyone has different personality traits. However, when someone has experienced a significant amount of wounds throughout their life, or anything that causes them to feel any type of distress, everyone reacts differently, right? So you will have, for example, 4 siblings in a home. They all went through the same exact lifestyle. They all experienced the same exact things in the home, but there may be only one out of the 4 that feels wounded about the situation that happened, the same situation that everybody went through, right? So when I say black and white, it's just you're headstrong. If I say we're going to go for a mile run every day, there should be no excuses why we're not going for this mile run. So it's like you don't have the ability to compromise, to hear others out, to deal with any kind of derailment in your plans. It has to be my way or the highway. So that's what I mean by
and I understand, but does that mean that a person, like as you mentioned, we want to clarify if that means that the person would have been, is it all up to, or you mentioned that it's not all up to, it can be personality as well as it can be what you're exposed to.
Right.
Okay, and the next question from what you mentioned is that as you mentioned that we have to get to the place where we are willing to unbox. And you mentioned that you may be from the same family, grown in the same environment, but the wound don't only affect one. In terms of family, because I think sometimes in family might not understand, because maybe one person out of, as you mentioned, might be wounded, and the others are saying, but we grow in the same family, so what's the problem? What is he talking about? How do one deal with something like that? When with that one individual who wants to unbox, they are the one that is displaying the wound, and the others are not. Please mute your mic. Thank you.
Nice.
Okay. I'm sorry, Samantha. Can you just repeat the question?
Yes, I was mentioning, as you said, that you might be from the same family, but only one from the family might be wounded in that particular way and is willing to heal. But for the family is thinking that nothing is wrong or nothing has gone wrong. The person is just being bad and horrible and just want to make it look bad, like, okay, how do one deal with that? If that's the one that has been wounded and we want to unbox tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for repeating the question. So how do you deal with that? Again, you have to remember therapy is an individual process. So you have to now look in yourself. You can't say, oh, well, I feel this way and I want my sister, Patricia, to understand how I feel. And I don't understand why Patricia doesn't see things my way. It's not about Patricia, it's about you. Remember, your therapy is about you. So you have to be, I guess, somewhat selfish and focus on you and your wounds. And it's okay if your family never understands or view things the way how you view it, that's fine, but you have to take care of self.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Davene, over to you. You are the one that always remember all the questions.
No problem there. So let's start with the how to unbox. And if I want to rephrase it, I'd say how to heal, because we're talking about emotional wounds and we know that wounds need healing. And I am a very simple person. I try to make things so, palatable for people. And I'm leaving everyone here tonight with the ABCs of healing. That's what I call it. A, B, C. So what's the A? You want to acknowledge that something is wrong. Something's off. Like, I know that you feel like your childhood was perfect. I know that you can't, fathom that, your perfect parents, did all the best that they could. And, life is, but acknowledge that something's off. Acknowledge that as you are relating to others, you're not doing it in the best way. You're not being the healthiest version of yourself. And admit that to yourself as you do that introspection, as you look at the patterns, you notice something that's off, you call it what it is and say it. Something is wrong. After you've acknowledged it, then here comes B. What's B? You bring it to somebody who can deal with it, somebody who is trained to deal with it, whether it be a counselor, a therapist, a coach, a mentor, a spiritual leader, whoever is trained to deal with it, you bring it to that individual. And I always use this example because I believe it's relatable, where if you were to get a chop or inflicted wound on any part of your body, I don't care how good you think ginger ale or ginger tea is. I don't care how much you think prior works. You are taking yourself up and you're going to the medical doctor to seek his professional help because you have a physical wound and he's been trained to deal, or she is trained to deal with your physical wound. Similarly, when you have acknowledged that you have an emotional wound, please, I beg you, don't try ginger aling it out or white wining it out or smoking it out or praying it out. I'm sorry, I'm a Christian, but please don't try praying it out. Pray it out and bring it to the person who is trained to help you along the journey to deal with those wounds. So that's the B. Simple. Think of it as a cut on your foot that you're taking to the doctor. Because here's what. You really don't want to lose your foot if you don't have to. So whatever means you're going to take to save your foot, then you do that. And then the C. So the healing journey is not a linear process. Please understand that, right? So the C means that you're going to continue the journey as you sit with that therapist or that counselor or that coach or that mentor, whoever the person is, and they give you the soul work to do, when they give you the life work to do. You, even when you feel as if you're ready to give up, make every effort to continue to do the work. It's just like the medication that you would get from the doctor. You want to take it so that you can get better. So just to bring it back home, ABC, acknowledge it, bring it, and continue the journey. And after going through all the ABCs, I feel like I forgot the second part of your question. However, because I noticed I was using my hands so the fingers weren't crossed. So let's see if I can remember what was the last thing that you had asked. About the black and white. How do you deal with that child who, I can talk about that child because I'm her. I mean, even though it's just me and my brother. And I've never had that conversation with him to find out if, you know, how I was emotionally wounded, if he experienced the same thing or if he felt the same way. Because as Joette rightly said, my trauma is my trauma and therapy is individual. And because I want to be healed and whole, I'm going to do it for me. And I have seen where, because individuals are not all aware of the power that lies when you within healing and doing the work, because they were not brought up that way. Michelle made mention earlier about the whole culture. Our culture was never, the culture we were grown under was what happens in this house stays in this house. And so and that is triggering in so many ways, because just imagine you're being beat and you have to show up in places and laugh as if everything was okay. Oh Lord, help us. But the culture for many of us was not to take anything that happened within our homes to anyone. And so just imagine that's how we were raised. How do you think our parents were raised? How do you think their parents were raised? So unless we get to a stage of appreciating the value attached to bringing these situations to persons who are trained to help us deal with them, then we're going to continue to have that happening. But you, the individual, would have to continue showing up for yourself. And what I have noticed in my own self and in others that are in my circle, that once you start to do the work, the persons who you relate to, they understand how necessary it is for them to heal themselves as well. So as we do that for ourselves, we are creating a new culture. We are unlearning, we're relearning, and now we're creating a culture where 20 years from now, everybody will put up their hands and say they've been to a counselor. And it's no shame, it's no, but why are you doing that? It's where we understand that in order for us to be the better versions of ourselves, we have to do the work.
Wow. That is just so blown away. Over to you, Michelle. How do we unbox, and what do we do when it's affecting our daily lives and our relationship? Because you would have, as a relationship coach, sees it, and most of us here are adults and are involved in relationship, and we mention culture a lot, and you are big on culture too, and a lot of times we are manifesting the things that we know from our culture and our norm. So how do we unbox, and do we just stay how we are, or what do we do?
So I think it was Davene, she was saying that she need to give it attention. That's my philosophy, like, oh God, give it attention. Be aware. So oftentimes people would say, well, I didn't know I had a problem. I've been living this way and I've been coping, right? But I would tell you this, if you have a behavior pattern that has been showing up, if you just stop for a second and actually pay attention to what your sister might have said, what your ex might have said, what your brother might have said, you might see there's a correlation of something coming up all the time for you. And that means there's something that everyone else is seeing. You're the common denominator. So why not give that some attention, right? So if you don't know what it is, or you don't know, you just know that things are not working the way you want it to work, or you know that I wish my life was different, I would say take some time to reflect, because if you really listen, you would see that it has come up for you in so many different ways that you would see there's a commonality. So give attention to it. I also believe that you should try to understand, right? Because understand, grace, compassion, that's all folded in there. And why? Because you can keep yourself in a place of not feeling like you can move on if you hold yourself still there. And so understanding we all are fallible, right? There's no one here that can possibly say, I'm going to go through life perfectly. We are going to make a mistake. But what's really important about the mistakes is to understand that we all do it, and there's a place that you can learn from, right? So if you ignore the mistake, ignore the foul, ignore the stumble, and just keep doing it, there's chances are you're going to repeat those things over and over and over. So how can we learn? I love the fact that you have to understand that in our culture, to go to someone for help is like, was you crazy? Is what wrong with she? Oh my Lord, the ignorance that just kind of.
I love the accent. Go again, Michelle.
I had to go into character. But I remember my son coming to me and he's like, I want to go to a therapist. And I was like, why? He's like, I just feel like I do. And I feel like I need to talk to somebody. And this was like maybe 15 years ago. And I was ready to do it. But my husband was like, what's wrong with him? Why you need to, and we had to like actually coax ourselves to say like, hey, if this kid feels that he wants to talk to somebody, like what is the harm of him actually going, having some private time? So I see a lot of people that are not Caribbean. I probably seen maybe more Africans, Americans, and I have seen West Indians in my clientele, right? And it's because like, what? You have to go for what? Like the understanding is not there that you need help outside of yourself if you cannot recognize that there's help that's needed. And so that piece is really important to really, as she said, follow through. You might start a thing, and with everything, you start a thing and you don't continue, but you need to see it all the way through. And a really big piece for me is actually forgiveness. And that forgiveness is really important. And that forgiveness comes not only on yourself. So Nelson Mandela said, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the enemy to die, right? And so if you are not forgiven whatever happened, whatever took place, you're not learning from it, and you're not also getting anything unstuck or learn from that. You're just keeping yourself there and reliving that, and constantly reliving it is so bad for your health and your mental well-being. So I would say definitely keep the awareness there, seek help, gain understanding, compassion, and grace for yourself. You definitely want to forgive, or you want to learn from that, and you want to stick to it. And you want to break all the cultural barriers that says that it's taboo to seek help. It's taboo to look for someone to actually help you to move forward, because it's not. It is so not. It's healthy. And I think I think it was Jolene said that everyone should have a therapist. It's like, yo, yeah, for sure. You have your cell phone, you should have a therapist. Like, I would tell you, like, I call I need to see you, girl. I just need to vent. Like, let's just talk. I'm gonna give you the hour to just like let me get myself, because it gives you. I think it's better to express it out instead of to leave it in, because this here, it's a war going on between all the things that you're struggling with and trying to make sense of. But as soon as you explore that out, it's such a different way of looking at it. And it's a perspective change, right? So pay attention to what shows up continually. And that's a real cheat sheet to say, oh, maybe they're all not wrong. Maybe everybody's not wrong and I'm the only right one here. And I would say with the black and white thing, so again, it's called for perspective. Like, one person's experience is not the other. Trauma is anything that overwhelms you to the point that you can't cope well with it. And so if you're experiencing it in a one way and somebody experiencing it another way, they could handle what was going on better than the other person. So it's not for you to project what you are feeling onto anyone else. So you can't have two people in the same room and do have two different experiences. It's just giving credibility to that person and what they're feeling. So I often say when I'm talking to my kids and they're like, well, this is how, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I didn't say that, but that's how they heard it. That's how they're experiencing it. And I have to validate that. And so in validating that, I have to acknowledge, okay, that's your experience of what I said. So therefore, what do I do from here? Is it something I need to apologize? Then I apologize, because no matter what I do, I can't change how they experience it. Therefore, if you're in that relationship where your brother or your sister had a totally different experience, say kudos and thank God they didn't experience the trauma you did, and they need to seek help, and you need to be respectful of them finding that help, because it's going to help them to move forward. And I wrote the question down. I cheated, so that's why I remember. I was like, after that, I was like, "Yo, let me grab that." That was you, and okay, I got you.
I was like, she was just flowing, like she.
No, I wrote it down.
All right, thank you so much,
Samantha. Just to add to one of the things that Michelle said, you know, the whole idea of when her son came to her. And if she hadn't allowed him to, you know, go through on his wishes of seeing a therapist, and say, God forbid, he did something, her first response would have been, why didn't you tell us? Or why didn't you talk to somebody? And so because we are so wired to be reactive than proactive, we think it's okay to, after somebody dies by suicide, or after we find out that they're cutting themselves, or after, then we say, but you should have. And never, well, not me, I'm not using those words. You know better, Davene, don't use those words. And not often are we saying to individuals, it's okay to go talk to somebody. Obviously, you need the help, so I'm supporting you doing that. And then we get to a stage of shutting them down, shutting down their desire to do that, and then asking questions when answers can't be provided. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Yes, and that's so true. It was yesterday I was saying that in terms of even mental health, most times persons always say, if you ask, why didn't they say something to somebody? But you realize, but even when persons are saying, I need a break, I'm tired, I'm whatever, don't worry, man, you're still pouring at the person, pouring, and not considering that they say they need a break. It's serious. It's not that serious until something happened. And they're, oh, Lord Jesus, why did they? Yeah. But I'm going to be opening the floor for persons to share. I'm going to stop live streaming so that you have a safe place to share. I'm going to stop recording so that you have a safe place to talk, to share. So you don't have to feel that you are monitoring or you're being gone somewhere that we don't want it to go. So it's just between us that is here. So I am